Welcome to the Higher Arabia podcast, powered by Matchmaker Number One. I'm Inez Makrani, recruiter, coach, and connector of talent across Europe and the Middle East. In this podcast, we explore the challenges, opportunities, and success stories of hiring in one of the world's most dynamic regions. Let's dive in. Global leaders often set foot into the Middle East with all this confidence based on their past experiences, but they're missing some critical points, right? They assume power structures here work the same way everywhere else.
Absolutely. It's like they think a title automatically equals real power or that formal meetings drive major decisions, isn't it?
Exactly. And the reality is, power in the Middle East is so much more about relationships, trust, and history, often well outside the
that's
formal
key.
room. It's almost like if you just look at the org chart, you're missing the secret language of influence.
I love that analogy, secret language of influence. So, would you say that like most leaders come in with the wrong assumptions?
Oh, definitely. They come over thinking, oh, it's a faster version of Europe. They assume that meeting the person with the biggest title means you're engaging the real decision maker. But as we see, that's not how things roll here.
Right. So like you might meet a formal decision maker who in reality doesn't move the needle at all. And then there's this quiet advisor who really calls the shots.
Exactly. It's like you're negotiating blind if you've got your eyes fixed solely on the formal power structure.
Yes,
When you're
definitely.
not mapped the real influences, you're missing the entire picture.
And there's that common pitfall where Western leaders call it politics, right? They misunderstand the whole scene.
Yeah, that's a critical misinterpretation. It's not so much about politics in the conventional sense. It's about social capital that comes from being relational and cumulative in building trust. You know, if you treat trust as something to be manipulated, you destroy credibility instantly.
That point about trust really hits home. So, how does this misunderstanding impact the companies investing in the region?
It costs companies a lot more than they might anticipate. We're talking failed expansions, stalled projects, and lost trust that might be impossible to
Totally.
rebuild. Imagine spending millions only to quietly exit, blaming culture when really the leadership lens never shifted.
It seems like a real profound disconnect in expectations. Like if you're not adapting your perspective on power and influence, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly. And there's another angle to it: communication. Western leaders, they often wait for explicit feedback, but in the Middle East, silence itself is feedback. Delays and who answers or doesn't answer all become signals.
Right. So if you're not reading those signals correctly, you're totally misreading reality. It's like a whole different communication style.
Absolutely. And it's not just about waiting for clear-cut answers. For instance, the pace itself and the very nature of responses are part of a conversation that's far less transactional. It's like a subtle performance of trust building over time rather than immediate transactional feedback.
Now, you mentioned the idea that leadership here is about being present, curious, and humble. Can we dive more into that?
Sure thing. Essentially, what works in the Middle East is showing up in a way that proves you're willing to learn. It's less about having all the answers and more about building those genuine relationships before even starting the execution of your strategy.
That strikes me as both refreshing and challenging for traditional leadership models. It's a clear call to adapt and be less, arrogant in your assumptions.
Yeah, exactly. And here's where I might respectfully challenge the typical notion. Some might argue that waiting for explicit signals is more reliable than interpreting silence or delays. But in this context, if you wait too long, you might miss out on the implicit cues of trust and influence.
I see your point. There's a sort of dance going on where if you're too procedural, you might actually break the delicate balance of building social capital. Correct?
Precisely. Think of it like a slow-cooked meal. You have to let the flavors develop. Trying to rush that process by imposing a Western style can spoil the dish here.
That's a stellar analogy. Slow cooked meal and flavors. It underscores how the informality creates the actual power. But does that mean companies should just throw away all Western methods?
Not throw away, but rather
Right,
adapt.
adapt.
For example, Rather than mapping only the formal hierarchy, you need to map influence on a relational level. That's one of the key strategies mentioned. See which networks actually drive decisions.
Yeah, and that involves investing in relationships even before initiating projects. It's almost like cultivating a garden rather than just ordering a bouquet.
Exactly. You need to nurture that garden by listening for signals like response times, who is actually engaged, and even who stays silent. Those are the
Absolutely.
true indicators of underlying influence and trust.
And then there's the point about decisiveness, like decide faster, refine later. That really contrasts with the often slow, deliberative Western style, doesn't it?
For sure, quick decision making with the understanding that you may refine things later is vital. It's about being agile and responsive to the subtle shifts in the relationship dynamics. You don't want to be
Agility is key.
paralyzed by waiting for perfect clarity when the signals are already there.
That kind of agility seems to require not only keen perception, but also a level of humility. You're essentially accepting that you might have been wrong all along about how power works.
Exactly. And that humility goes a long
Right,
way.
yes.
The region favors leaders who are curious, open to learning, and who show respect for the informal channels of authority.
So, if I'm hearing this correctly, the blueprint for success in the Middle East centers around three things: mapping influence, building relationships, and being agile in decision making, right?
Spot on. And also respecting informal authority and reading communication signals in their unique, sometimes nonverbal manner. It's a complete
Absolutely.
leadership lens overhaul, shifting from certainty to understanding.
Wow. It almost sounds like a complete paradigm shift for many global companies. I can imagine some leaders might resist this change because it challenges their deeply ingrained beliefs.
Exactly, and that's a major stumbling block. Some leaders cling to the idea that formal titles and structured meetings are where the real power lies, which is a comfortable but inaccurate notion when operating in the Middle East.
I get that.
It's like forcing a square peg into a round hole.
Right. And that misfit leads directly to failures such as stalled projects or failed expansions, sometimes costing companies millions. That's a steep price for not adapting.
Absolutely. The cost is not just monetary, it's about losing trust, credibility, and a chance to genuinely connect with local power structures. Once lost,
Yeah, trust is
trust can be
everything.
nearly impossible to rebuild.
It's fascinating how these cultural nuances can shift operational dynamics so drastically. What do you think is the biggest takeaway from these insights?
The biggest takeaway is probably this. If you're coming to the Middle East or any region with nuanced power dynamics, you need to leave your assumptions at the door.
Leave them behind.
Adapt, listen, cultivate relationships, and respect the informal structures if you want to succeed.
And that ultimately is the key to not just avoiding costly mistakes, but also to building sustainable mutual success. It's like a two-way street built on genuine trust and understanding.
Certainly. And that means global leaders need to trade imported certainty for locally imported understanding.
exactly.
When leaders manage that shift, they open up opportunities that go far beyond short-term wins. They build lasting influence.
Really a refreshing yet challenging roadmap for global companies looking to navigate this unique landscape. It challenges them to rethink their entire approach to power and decision making.
Absolutely. And when companies do that effectively, they not only avoid blind spots, but also harness an entirely new kind of competitive edge. It's a lesson in
Indeed.
humility, agility, and, well, authentic connection.
A brilliant discussion, really. It's clear that success in the Middle East isn't about exporting Western certainties. It's about importing a deep understanding of local dynamics.
Exactly. And it's about being sensitive to how power really flows through relationships and historical contexts. The only way to thrive here is to, truly listen to those silent yet profound signals.
And that, in turn, prevents companies from spending millions on misguided strategies and ultimately ensures they build real, sustainable alliances in the region.
Right on the mark, it's a wake-up call for any global leader aiming to make a meaningful impact in the Middle East. Thanks for diving into these insights with me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Higher Arabia podcast, brought to you by Matchmaker Number One. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps us connect even more talented individuals with opportunities. See you next time. Until then, keep building bridges between cultures and careers.